What's up everybody, Jeremy Weiss here with Weiss Tech Hockey, and in previous videos I've shown you the box plus one defensive zone coverage setup, which is a very basic introductory type defensive zone coverage system, very passive, and then I also showed you how you can convert that into a little bit more aggressive version called the sagging zone. And what I wanted to show you today is a slightly more aggressive version of the sagging zone. So everything we do is always in progressions. We'll start basic and then get a little bit more and more complex. What I call this particular setup is the sagging zone arrow, and as we start drawing it up you'll see why I call it that. But it's a little bit more aggressive version. It'll cause more turnovers for you, but at the same time it will leave you a little bit more vulnerable in front of the net. So make sure that you use it wisely. Make sure that you've got the proper personnel to use it. Teams that are fast and good at anticipating, good at anticipation will definitely do better with this type of system. But yeah, so you'll have kind of the three versions available to you, and you can pick and choose which ones make the most sense for your team. So let's pull up the rink here, and you'll see we've got our basic sagging zone set up with the strong side defenseman on the puck, centerman supporting at the near post, left defenseman on the far post, covering any potential backdoor guys. Then we've got our sagging winger, our weak side winger is the sag man in this case, and our other winger who is kind of playing possum, anticipating a possible pass up to the point there. So that's our sagging zone coverage. Now, the sagging zone arrow works on the premise that no matter where the puck is on the ice, generally there are going to be two passing options for you. So in this case, there would be a passing option either to this man on the near boards or to the point, okay, and a passing option somewhere to a man potentially behind the net. Okay, so those are the two directions that a puck could go if we're covering properly. I mean, if we're covering properly, then for him to be able to get a pass through the defenseman and then also through to this winger or to this weak side defenseman on his team, that should be an impossible pass because we've got our defenseman and then hopefully our sag man is there as well to anticipate that type of thing. So no matter where the puck is on the ice, generally there are going to be two directions that the puck can go, one this direction and one this direction. So what the concept of the arrow does is capitalizes on that. So we will keep our right winger similar to where he is, maybe just cheat out a tiny bit more because that is one of the possible passing options. And then in this case, it doesn't look a whole lot different, but it does look different when the puck moves to the point, and I'll show you how that looks. But in this case, the centerman will be edging down to cut off any potential passes behind the net. So, and then what that basically does is leaves two men in front of the net instead of three. So the defenseman and the left winger will definitely have to keep their heads on more of a swivel, make sure that they're clearing the front of the net out and not letting any backdoor guys sneak in behind them. So that is the arrow from that perspective. Let's get rid of these arrows here, and let's say that now the puck moves up to the point. Okay, so generally when the puck moves to the point, what we used to have is we'd have this winger slide up, the centerman slide back, right defenseman come back, retreat to the front of the net. That's the regular sagging zone. What we're going to do now is we're going to have the right winger go out hard. He's always going aggressive. Right defenseman is going to come out a little bit more to about here. So he's not going to, he was in the corner, he's not going to retreat all the way back to the front of the net. He's going to stay about here. And we've got our left winger up here. So again, you can see it's very similar. And then our centerman will be about right here, okay? And our left defenseman is still covering the front of the net, covering any backdoor guys. So the setup is still very, very, very similar to the sagging zone, except that the sag isn't quite as deep. So instead of really retreating to the front of the net, what we're doing is anticipating the possible passing options. So from here, the passing options would be either to this guy on the boards or down here. Those two passes are still in the same direction though, so one guy should be able to cover that, and then passes across. So basically what we're doing is we're getting pretty aggressive on the two potential passing options that are there no matter where the puck is. And that's the arrow. So it's a little bit more of an arrow because we've got this type of pattern there. So that is the defensive zone coverage sagging arrow. Now one thing I forgot to mention in my other videos and wanted to mention it here is, let's say, and I'm going to get these extra arrows out. Now this rink isn't completely scale, and here in Utah we play on a lot of Olympic sheets, which makes the problem even more extreme. So if you're playing on an NHL size, it might not be quite as bad, but on an Olympic size sheet or bigger size ice sheets, there's a very big vulnerability through the seam. And I know I've talked about the seam in quite a few other videos. The seam is basically, I call it this area here just across the top of the circle, where it's a little bit too low for the winger's coverage and a little bit too high for the defenseman's coverage, and generally there is an area that can be exploited right through the seam if this player is fast and can recognize it quickly and step through that seam with speed. So in our defensive zone coverage setups, whether that be the sagging zone or the sagging zone arrow, the responsibility of the seam goes to the centerman. Okay? So as soon as the centerman sees that guy starts walking through, he's going to attack straight out. The reason why I like the centerman is because he's coming through at a good angle, right? Oops, didn't do that arrow right. So I can delete it. Okay, so he's coming through at a good angle. Sorry, I'm having issues here. Coming through at a good angle, keeping his body between the shooter and the net. So if the right winger tries to attack it, he may or may not get it, but he's not in the way to block a shot. Same thing with the left winger. If he tries to attack that guy, he's not in the way to block a shot. The defenseman can't leave because that leaves the back door open. So the centerman's job is, and if the right defenseman tries to chase, he's basically chasing him from behind. So the centerman's job is the seam, and if you take care of that, then there shouldn't be too much penetration through there. So that is the sagging zone arrow. Have fun with that one.